She was abandoned with 4 small children, one of them with autism. She slept on the floor, went hungry, and sold lunchboxes to survive. Years later, she served the most expensive dish in the restaurant to her ex-husband. On the very night she was honored as Businesswoman of the Year. Want to know how this single mother became a symbol of resilience? Then subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notifications, because this story will stay with you forever. That gray morning, he walked out the door without looking back. His suitcase was already packed, and the silence weighed heavier than any scream. He said, "I can't do this anymore," and left as if he were only changing his clothes. He abandoned 4 children, Ana 12, Lucas 9, João 6, and Miguel, the youngest, just 1 year old. He left no child support, no note, only emptiness. Ana understood everything right away. She shut herself in her room and didn't cry, as if she were too grown up for that. Lucas ran to the window, waiting for his father to return. João asked if he had done something wrong, and Miguel, the baby, just sought his mother's arms, not understanding why the world had suddenly turned so cold, and she, Helena, stood still, frozen, holding together the pieces of a world that was collapsing. She was a single mother now, officially. The word had never felt so heavy as on that day. 4 children, no support system. The youngest still in diapers, the second needing school, the third demanding double attention. But it was Miguel who demanded everything: time, patience, love, and understanding. Days later came the diagnosis of childhood autism. Another avalanche, and she still didn't even have a home of her own. No job, no money, her heart crushed with pain. Helena could only act on instinct. She grabbed the children's backpacks, packed a few clothes, and called the only person who could help her immediately: a distant aunt. That's how she found herself with 4 small children, a grocery bag of belongings, and a shattered soul. She didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of her story of overcoming. The abandonment wasn't only his, it was the world's. No neighbor offered food, no friend asked if she needed help. It was just her and the children. At night, she pretended not to be hungry so they could have the last piece of bread. Miguel slept on her chest, rocking lightly to the songs she hummed. Even without knowing how, she knew she had to keep going. For them, only for them. The hardest part was the silence, the absence of answers. She called him once, twice, 3 times, but it went straight to voicemail. Ana asked when she would see her father again. Lucas stopped talking to his classmates. João wet the bed for the first time in months. And Miguel had long meltdowns, crying for hours on end. She learned to decipher him the hard way. Each day, a new challenge. While he posted photos with his new wife smiling on beaches in the Northeast, Helena cooked rice with carrots, eyeballing the portions to stretch for 5 people. Without gas, she used an improvised alcohol stove. Sometimes the smell of beans was nothing more than water with seasoning. But the children didn't know. She made them laugh with invented stories, little plays, promises of a future she still wasn't sure she could deliver. And maybe it was there, in that makeshift shack, that everything truly began. Not when he left, but when she refused to give up. When she looked at the 4 mattresses on the floor and, instead of lamenting, started to imagine what she would do next. Because no matter how dark it was, she still had something he never understood. A hunger for justice, a mother's courage, and the strength of someone who knows there's nowhere to run, only upward. The shack in the back of her aunt's house was cramped, damp, and dark. There were no walls dividing the rooms, only curtains improvised with old sheets. The floor was bare cement. 4 thin mattresses side by side took up almost all the space. There, Helena slept with her children, feeling every leak from the roof as a reminder that starting over would be harder than she had imagined. The nights were long. Miguel, with his childhood autism, had trouble sleeping and cried at any sound out of the ordinary. Helena rocked him in her arms for hours, while the others tried to rest to the muffled sound of his sobs. It was hard to keep hope alive when even silence was heavy, but she couldn't give in. 4 hearts were waiting for her courage. There was no stove. She cooked on a borrowed camping burner when the household gas allowed. When it didn't, she improvised with alcohol in a dented pot. Meals had to be calculated in portions, just enough to trick the children's stomachs and tell them there will be more tomorrow. Sometimes she said she wasn't hungry, but it was a lie. She just wanted to leave enough for the little ones. Lucas, the middle child, started refusing food as if he understood his mother's effort. Anna tried to help care for her siblings even though she was only a 12-year-old girl. João, always restless, spent the afternoons drawing on the walls with charcoal, the only pastime available there. Miguel listened to the same songs on repeat, the melodies that soothed him. Helena watched it all and thought, this can't be the end of our story. She looked for strength where none remained. Every trip to the market was a battle calculation. How much could she buy with coins and crumpled bills from the bottom of her bag? Fruit only when it was on sale. Meat, only ground and well-seasoned to stretch further. She learned to chop onions like no one else. She knew how to add flavor to the little she had, and she did it with love, even exhausted. Baths were with a bucket, cold water, broken shower. The children complained, and she invented stories. It's an African king's bath, she said, and they laughed. She turned hardship into play, turned pain into hope. It was that or sink. And a single mother with 4 children, one of them with autism, doesn't have the right to sink. She knew that. And even without strength, she got up every day. Each morning, she watched her children go to school in donated clothes and patched up notebooks. It was like sending them into the world with paper armor, but she smiled. She gave them confidence even when inside there was only weariness, because in the absence of everything, what remained was love. And with it, the determination that her children would never feel less than anyone else. Helena didn't know how, but she needed to find a way out. She could no longer bear hearing her children ask for candy and pretending it was a fruit day. She didn't want to see Miguel restless from lack of stimulation, or João going quiet out of fear of worrying her. Life was at its limit, and when everything seemed on the verge of collapse, it was a cooking pot that reignited the first spark of hope. The idea came in a moment of desperation. It was the end of the month, the pantry was empty, and the coins didn't even add up to $10. Helena took a deep breath and knocked on her aunt's door. She borrowed $20, eyes lowered, voice quiet. She bought rice, chicken, some spices, and 5 disposable containers. She didn't know it yet, but she had just bought more than food. She had bought the chance to start over. She cooked as if she were feeding kings. She perfected the seasoning, chopped everything with precision. It was only 5 meal boxes, but she put the very best of herself into them. It was the only way she had to turn that windowless kitchen into a battlefield for dignity. She went around the neighborhood offering them door to door, with Anna and Lucas following from a distance, watching with hope disguised as curiosity. She sold them all. The next day she made 10 more. The neighbors who had once just watched started to praise her. They said it tasted like a mother's cooking, food with soul. Helena understood. Cooking was her way of shouting that she was still there, even crushed by life. And while the rice boiled, Miguel sat beside her, listening to the same songs on the old radio, stirring a wooden spoon, smiling. Miguel calmed down with the smell of food. That boy who once cried for hours found peace right there beside his mother. She noticed it quickly. The kitchen was more than a place of survival. It was a place of connection with him. And there, among pots and spices, something new was born. A silent bridge between mother and son, one that childhood autism could never break. João started drawing improvised labels for the meal boxes. Anna organized the orders in a notebook. Lucas wrote down the names of the neighbors who bought them. Without realizing it, that honest cleaning lady, now without a home of her own, was turning misery into movement. The kitchen became a headquarters. Each of the children became soldiers. Hunger, it became the fuel for creation. She still wasn't making enough, but something had changed. She could feel the smell of her own strength. The pot bubbling on the camping stove had become a symbol of something greater, dignity under construction. The children started to notice it. Anna once whispered, "Mom, one day you're going to have a restaurant, right?" Helena didn't answer, but her heart did. That wasn't just food, it was the future being seasoned with courage. As the days went by, orders increased. The food began to go beyond the street. A delivery driver who bought by chance asked to take some to the hospital where he worked. And so, a meal box made in a damp shack arrived in a break room. Helena couldn't have imagined it, but that rice and chicken would open doors she had never thought to knock on. And it all began with $20 borrowed and a will not to give up. The pot, once a symbol of scarcity, now boiled full. It wasn't abundance yet, but it was different. It was a beginning. And the most incredible part? Miguel was always there. Over time, he began to help with small gestures, handing her a spoon separating containers. That boy they said would never connect with the world was now connecting with the smell of his mother's food, but it was only the beginning. And soon the whole neighborhood would know her name. The first time Helena saw a line outside her house, she thought it was a mistake. It was 7 in the morning and 3 people were waiting with money in hand, asking if there were lunch boxes today. Word of mouth spread fast. A delivery driver, after eating and getting emotional, posted on Instagram, "Mother's food, real flavor." One caption was enough to spark an avalanche, and there, in that shack, something bigger was born. The demand grew overnight. People she had never seen before knocked on the door asking if there was still time to order. Helena started waking up at 4 in the morning to keep up. The children helped before school. Miguel stayed by her side, as always, stirring his favorite wooden spoon. The kitchen was small, but the will to succeed was immense. A local businessman heard about her story and asked for a meeting. When he arrived at the shack and saw everything running with such dedication, he was moved. "Don't you want to set up a real place?" he asked. Helena hesitated. She had no money, no idea where to begin, but he insisted, "I'll bring the kitchen, you bring the soul." And that's how the first restaurant was born. It was simple, small, but clean and full of love. Helena made sure to paint the walls in bright colors and put phrases on the tables like, "Here we feed both body and dignity." Her children helped set everything up. Miguel got a child-sized apron with his name embroidered on it. There, among stainless steel pots and the smell of garlic sizzling, what was once survival became a structured dream. The community embraced the restaurant. Loyal customers kept coming. Local doctors, lawyers, teachers, they all came for Helena's food, and she made a point of treating everyone with the same respect. She always said, "Food is sacred. Whoever serves with love also serves hope." And this wasn't marketing, it was the truth she cooked every single day. Miguel found his place in the restaurant. He learned to recognize spices by smell. He knew the order of arranging the containers and, with time, became part of the kitchen's routine. What once was a concern turned into pride. Helena realized that childhood autism wasn't a barrier, but simply a different path, and he was walking it step by step right beside her, in his own rhythm. The story of the single mother who started selling lunchboxes with $20 became the talk of the entire city. Reporters began calling. A local TV station made a short but touching piece. They showed the restaurant, the children, the journey. Helena grew shy in front of the cameras, but Miguel smiled like never before. And that smile lit up the report that moved thousands of people. Then came the first invitations to expand. People from outside the city wanted to open a branch. And Helena, with her feet on the ground but her heart among the stars, began to wonder, could this really be possible? It was as if respect, once so distant, was now lining up at her door. And the most beautiful part? Those 4 mattresses on the floor never stopped being her strongest memory. And the seasoning of resilience was only just beginning to boil. The first restaurant became a reference point. Helena still didn't understand franchising, but she understood people. Customers from other neighborhoods would come and ask, "Is there another place selling this food?" That's when a consultant showed up. He helped set up an expansion model, and in less than 2 years there were already 5 units in operation. The brand grew, and with it the moving story that touched everyone who heard it. The food, once simple, gained more elaborate versions. The menu stayed true to its essence, a mother's seasoning, emotional memory, fair prices. Gourmet dishes were born there, from the mix of affection and innovation. Helena listened to her children, tested recipes, invented affectionate names. Flavor of a hug was one of them. And each new dish carried not only ingredients, but a piece of that family's story. Anna was the first to earn a scholarship. The girl who once helped pack lunchboxes was accepted into medical school at a public university. Lucas, who used to organize orders, created an app to streamline deliveries. And from that, his startup of eco-friendly packaging was born. João, always with a pencil in hand, published his first book of poems. 3 children, 3 victories, all born from the floor of that shack, and Miguel. Miguel became a symbol. The boy who once barely spoke now understood every detail of the kitchen. He developed sensitivity to aromas and textures. Helena encouraged him to take courses, supported by specialized professionals. They discovered he had a rare talent for sensory gastronomy. Today, he is an assistant chef. creating dishes inspired by memory, music, and touch. No one dared limit his horizons anymore. The franchises multiplied. Dozens of units in different states. The brand appeared on billboards, but the soul remained the same. Helena made a point of visiting every unit, speaking with employees, listening to customers. She always brought Miguel, with his notebook and attentive gaze. It was more than work, it was a legacy, and that legacy expanded with every dish served. The honest cleaning lady who once cried because she couldn't afford bread now ran a network with hundreds of employees. But she never lost her grounding. She still woke up early, went to the market, chose the seasonings with her own hands. She kept her children close, involving them in every decision. It was a collective victory, and every achievement carried the memory of the days when there was nothing but faith. Customers didn't come just for the food. They came for the story. It was common to see people moved as they read the frames on the walls of the restaurants, where old photos showed Helena with her small children in the shack. Some said they felt a different taste in that food, the taste of life's triumph. Because deep down, everyone wants to believe they can succeed too, and her story proved it. And even with all the success, Helena knew the most valuable thing remained untouched, her table with her 4 children. Whenever she could, she gathered them all at home, cooked herself without cameras, without customers, without the press. Just them, the 5 of them, and there, around that table, she repeated the phrase she never stopped saying, "We won, but we haven't reached the end yet." The award ceremony was held in one of the city's most sophisticated halls. Red carpet, sparkling glasses, spotlights sweeping across the room. Helena arrived with Miguel, her youngest, dressed in his personalized chef's apron. The audience recognized them immediately, the single mother and her prodigy son who had defied the logic of abandonment. And without saying a word, they already commanded respect. Among the guests, a couple had arrived early and ordered the most expensive dish on the menu. It was Marcelo, the ex-husband who years earlier had walked away with a suitcase in hand, leaving 4 children behind. Beside him, his younger wife, and beautiful, elegant, and now visibly uncomfortable. Neither of them knew who would be walking onto the stage that night. They ordered dessert without realizing they were about to swallow their own past. Miguel walked calmly at his mother's side. With headphones in, he listened to the music that always helped him organize his inner world. Helena watched him tenderly. The boy who once cried for hours every day was now being honored for his contribution to inclusive gastronomy. It was the silent peak of an emotional story that began with 4 mattresses on the floor. The master of ceremonies cut through the room's noise with a firm voice. And the businesswoman of the year is Helena Almeida. The name thundered across the hall. Applause rose with force. Marcelo tried to join in but stopped halfway. Helena walked up to the stage with the same composure she once had when selling lunchboxes at the gate. And now, beside her son, she was being celebrated by an entire nation. Her speech was serene but sharp. "This award is for all the women who cook while crying but never let the fire go out." The audience cheered. "For every child who believes in their mother's strength even when the whole world turns its back." And then, with a calm smile, she added, "Anna was accepted into medical school. Lucas expanded his startup abroad. João published a book in Europe. And Miguel, my kitchen partner, is here with me." The camera cut to Marcelo, pale skin, frozen expression. Not a single word was spoken about him, and that hurt more than any memory. The hall remained standing, eyes brimming, before that woman who proved, without shouting, that she never needed revenge, only a stage. It wasn't about payback. It was about showing the world she had never needed a savior. When the trophy was placed in her hands, Helena looked at Miguel. He smiled with his eyes. It wasn't a happy ending. It was a dignified new beginning. Because now they were a symbol of childhood autism treated with love, a family rebuilt, of a business born from pain. The entire hall clapped. But the only sound Helena heard was that of a pot bubbling in the heart of her memory. As they left the stage, the light still danced around them. Helena took a deep breath, knowing that this night was not the end of a journey, only the right time to face the past. And when she approached Marcelo's table with Miguel by her side, the true final scene was set with the devastating simplicity of someone who knows exactly who they have become. Helena didn't hesitate. She crossed the hall, greeting guests with the calmness of someone who owes nothing. She reached Marcelo's table as if it were just any other, but for him it was the most uncomfortable moment of his life. She extended her hand. "Good evening, Marcelo." Her voice was clear. There was no venom, only elegance. He stood up abruptly and shook her hand with trembling fingers. His wife tried to smile, but discomfort spoke louder than any courtesy. Miguel remained by his mother's side. His gaze was direct, steady, but without anger, as if to say, "I know who I am, and that's enough." It was the silence of victory, and the father who had abandoned him now saw him as a man, not a burden. A recognized chef present on menus and in hearts, Helena looked at the two with kindness without superiority. "I hope you enjoyed the evening." And before either of them could reply, she had already turned her back. She walked on between tables and smiles, being greeted by journalists, investors, artists. Her name echoed between glasses and camera flashes. But inside her, what resonated was the echo of a single certainty. She had won, and she had won in the most beautiful way. The waiter approached with dessert signed by Miguel. His name written on a chocolate plaque. Marcelo didn't even touch the spoon. He watched Helena walk away, surrounded by light and respect. There was no denying it anymore. That honest cleaning woman, the one he had left alone with 4 children, was now greater than any ambition he had ever dreamed of reaching. His new wife avoided looking at the stage. She was too embarrassed to say a word. Marcelo, meanwhile, kept his eyes fixed on Helena, not out of desire nor nostalgia, but from the pain of realization she had shown without him. She had grown without resentment, and she had transformed humiliation into strength. Now, nothing he said would make a difference. Miguel, with his reserved nature, returned to the kitchen after the greetings. Helena said goodbye to the last guests, picked up her purse and trophy. The driver waited outside. Before getting into the car, she looked up at the sky and smiled. She remembered the night when she had no gas to cook rice, and now she had built an empire. But what made her proudest was that she had done it without ever ceasing to be a mother. The car pulled away slowly. Inside, Miguel rested his head on her shoulder. Helena stroked his hair, just as she had when he was a baby. Outside, the hall was still buzzing. But there, in that simple car, was the real ceremony. The ceremony of those who had won with truth, with courage, and with love. And that celebration, not even time could erase, because when a woman builds her own name, no one can take it away. When a mother turns pain into dignity, no abandonment survives. And when life gives her the chance to serve dinner to the man who once tried to destroy her, she serves it with class and still asks, "Did you like the seasoning?" And now I ask you, how many times have you thought about giving up, believing no one would notice your effort? How many nights have you stayed silent, swallowing your tears so you wouldn't scare anyone? Helena had no way out, but she had a reason. And that was enough. You have one too. And if you don't know what it is yet, maybe you're just too distracted trying to survive. But the question remains, what will you do with the pain you carry? Will you let it drown you, or will you season your own story with it? The strength of this single mother who raised incredible children without support is more than an example. It's a mirror. And if she managed to rise from nothing and be applauded by the whole world, why couldn't you take the first step? If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notifications to keep receiving stories that inspire, awaken, and transform. Because here we serve truth on the plate, and your table deserves it.